Chapter 20. The meeting point was set. A crumbling factory on the outskirts of nowhere, its roof half caved in, glass crunching under every step. Gabriel walked alone into the center, the faint echo of his boots carrying farther than it should have. He looked every bit the part Charles expected, a man cut off, desperate, ready to shift allegiances. The rest of us were ghosts in the shadows. Cale and Cade had already vanished into the far edges of the ruins, watching for any movement beyond the perimeter. Zeph and Naira were somewhere between the steel skeleton beams, silent, waiting for the first wrong step. Torin and Rurk held the entry points, built like stone walls in the dark. Dax and Voss crouched over charges, in case the building had to come down fast. Silas and Veyer were the unseen eyes overhead, one spotting, one ready to pull the trigger. And I stood just behind the crumbled wall with Rin and Sira, ready to step in if Gabriel needed me, my voice waiting like a blade still sheathed. The air was thick, buzzing with that awful weight of anticipation, the silence before the first shot. Then Charles arrived. He stepped through the broken doorway like he belonged there, his suit immaculate despite the dust. Alone, or at least he wanted us to believe so. "Gabriel," he said smoothly, his voice carrying across the hollow space. "You've grown brave asking me here, brave or foolish." Gabriel didn't flinch. "You told me I could trust you, but you lied. You said Vero sent me, she didn't even know I existed." Charles' smile was faint, sharp. "And yet here you are, alive because of me." Gabriel's voice was steady, cold. "No, I'm alive in spite of you." The words hung between them, and the net of our trap tightened invisibly. Every pair in place, every breath held. All we had to do was wait for Charles to step wrong. The hollow factory seemed to shrink around them, the silence cutting sharper than any blade. Charles' faint smile curved, and for the first time there was no pretense of politeness. "You think you've uncovered some grand deception," he said softly. "That Gabriel was Icarus' leash, that I was their loyal handler." His eyes flicked up, cold and gleaming. "You couldn't be more wrong." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "Then explain why Vero didn't know about me. Explain why you lied." Charles took a step closer, his voice carrying through the cavern. "Because you weren't hers to know. You were mine, you and your entire flock." The words hit like a blade across the room, and even from my hidden vantage, my breath caught. Charles' voice grew steadier, darker. "I created you, Gabriel, not to serve Icarus, but to keep Vero's precious projects in check. Insurance, fail-safes, a blade at her throat that she never knew I was holding." Gabriel's fists clenched at his sides, his entire body going rigid. "You're lying." "Am I?" Charles' smile widened, cruel. "Why do you think you were never logged, never sanctioned? Because you were never Icarus' asset. You were mine. My betrayal of them was long ago, and you've been my weapon ever since. My failsafe. My guarantee that if Icarus ever grew too ambitious, too reckless, I could pull the plug." The sound of it seemed to echo inside the ruin. "Icarus doesn't control me," Charles continued, his words like poison. "I hate them, always have, I've only ever used them. And you—" His gaze cut into Gabriel, were my knife in the dark, too blind to see who forged you. Gabriel's face was unreadable, but the fury in his eyes was unmistakable. Betrayal upon betrayal stacking in layers, so deep I couldn't tell if he'd move or break. From the shadows, I saw Rin tense, Sira's jaw clench, and even Sila's shift his rifle, as if daring Charles to give them the reason to end him. And me, I couldn't breathe, because in one breath, Charles had shattered everything Gabriel thought he was. Charles' smile curved, that cruel edge never softening. "At first, my genius was appreciated," he said, packing just a little across the cracked floor. "Icarus praised my work, my designs, my vision for what hybrids could be. I was indispensable. But over time, the recognition faded. They took my brilliance for granted. They pushed me aside, handed their admiration to Vero, as if she were the savior of this project and I nothing more than a relic." His voice sharpened, dripping with venom. "I gave them weapons that could think, soldiers who could never be outmatched, and in return I was treated like a liability, someone to monitor, someone to question, That's why I turned away. Why I made my own failsafes. I refused to let small minds dictate the legacy of my work. Gabriel's jaw was tight, his voice low with fury. So you lied, manipulated, used us as tools just to prove yourself. Charles tilted his head, his eyes glinting. Not just you. He let the words hang, savoring the silence that followed. Then he dropped the weight of it. Lyra. The name cracked through the air. I felt my heart seize, my wings twitching tight at my back. Charles smiled wider, crueler. She wasn't just Vero's favored experiment. She was mine, my daughter, my blood. His eyes flicked like blades toward the shadows where I knew Lyra was hidden, listening. The only perfect child I ever made. Born in a tube against Vero's orders, her files sealed so neatly no one would ever know. She was the proof of everything I said could be done, and the nail in Vero's coffin. Because with her, I proved I didn't need their rules or their permission. The silence that followed was heavier than any bomb. Charles' gaze swept the shadows, savoring the reaction he knew he was drawing out. She doesn't even know what she is, does she? She thinks she's special because Vero made her. But the truth is, she was mine long before she was anyone else. Gabriel's voice cut sharp through the tension, low and furious. That's not possible. Lyra is Vero's biological daughter. We all knew it. Even she knew it. How the hell are you standing here claiming she's yours? Charles' smile didn't waver. In fact, it deepened. Oh, Gabriel, always so certain of what you've been told. Always so loyal to the stories Icarus feeds you. He stepped closer, his polished shoes crunching glass underfoot. His voice carried, echoing against the hollow factory walls. Biological daughter, that's the lie Vero wrote into her files. Convenient, isn't it? A story to make her seem like a miracle, the prodigy birthed by the saint of Icarus herself. But the truth? He spread his hands, mockingly gentle. Lyra wasn't born of flesh. She wasn't carried or delivered. She was grown, spliced, a child of code and gene grafting. My design, my oversight. Vero only laid claim after I proved what could be done. His eyes glinted with a cruel pride. I built her genome. I built her chance at wings before Vero ever touched her. I broke every order, every boundary to make her a reality. And when the council threatened to shut me down, I sealed her files and let Vero play the part of mother. It was the only way to keep her alive. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping into something darker, something possessive. So yes, she is Vero's daughter by story. But by science, by blood, she is mine, my perfect heir, my legacy, and she doesn't even know it. From the shadows, I could feel Lyra's stillness like a scream, even though she hadn't revealed herself yet. The whole room was locked in silence, every player frozen, every breath tight, waiting for what Gabriel or I or Lyra herself would do next. Gabriel's voice came low, steady, threading the line between accusation and bait. You call them masterpieces, fail-safes, your legacy. Then why betray them? Why sell us out to Hades? Charles gave a low, humorless laugh. Betrayal! You're still thinking in such small terms. I didn't betray my creations. I elevated them, tested them against the harshest crucible imaginable. Gabriel's jaw clenched, but he didn't look away. So you are Hades' contact. Charles tilted his head, his expression shifting, almost pleased. Hades came to me long before you ever suspected. They wanted Icarus' secrets, and I gave them enough to keep their leash tight. But it wasn't about allegiance, it was leverage. They despise Icarus as much as I do. Their destruction of facilities, their cleansing of the weaker subjects, it was brutal, yes, but it stripped away the dead weight. Left only the strong to rise. Isn't that what evolution demands? Gabriel didn't move, but his voice sharpened. And Lyra, you call her your heir, your blood, yet you'd put her in Hades' crosshairs too. You'd risk killing her just to watch what survives. Charles' smile widened, cruel. Of course I would. The true test of a creation isn't in the lab, it's in fire. If she burns, she was never perfect. If she survives, then she proves everything I've ever said. Either way, my genius is undeniable. The words hit like knives, and though Lyra hadn't moved from her hiding place, I could feel the fury boiling off her like heat. Gabriel's fists clenched at his sides, but his voice stayed controlled, his final push subtle but deadly. So it was never about protecting us. Not Icarus, not Hades, just you. You've been playing both sides, stringing them along, bleeding them dry, and dropping bombs on the very people you built to prove a point. Charles' eyes glittered, sharp as glass. Now you're beginning to understand. For the first time since Charles started speaking, Gabriel's voice broke the rhythm. It wasn't sharp or cold. It was steady, quiet, but carrying enough weight to silence the room even further. You say you made me your knife, your failsafe, that all of this was about proving your genius. His eyes locked on Charles, unblinking. Then why save me? Charles tilted his head slightly, his smirk faltering. Why pull me off that battlefield half dead? Gabriel pressed, his tone rising just a notch. Why give me wings and call it survival if the whole point was to kill us in the end? Why let Abigail work for Icarus at all? Why give her a role in a system you say you betrayed, instead of cutting her down like the rest? The silence after the question was thick. Even hidden in the shadows, I could feel the ripple of shock moving through everyone, wolves, panthers, my flock. None of them had expected Gabriel to break the script. Charles' smile returned, slower this time, but his eyes were sharper, calculating. Because even the most beautiful blade needs a hand to wield it, he said finally. You were wasted in uniform, bleeding into the dirt. I saw the potential to make you more than human, to make you into proof. Proof that my process worked outside a lab, that even a man broken by war could be reforged into something unstoppable. His gaze slid toward where Abigail hid in the shadows. And as for her, I never cared for her as a soldier or even as your sister. She was a tether, your humanity. And I needed that, Gabriel, because a blade with no handle is just a shard of metal. You wouldn't have survived without her, and I wouldn't have had my demonstration piece. His lips curved again into that cruel, self-satisfied smile. You weren't saved. You were sharpened. Every piece of you was chosen, even her. That's the genius of it. And whether you hate me or not, you've proven me right every time you've drawn blood. Gabriel didn't flinch. No anger, no outburst, no hint of the storm I knew had to be burning behind his eyes. His voice stayed calm, flat, like he was dismantling a machine piece by piece. You said you made me your knife, your proof. His gaze didn't waver. Did you create them too? Charles arched a brow. Them. The wolves, the panthers. Gabriel's tone didn't rise, didn't falter. The ones Hades turned into fodder, did they come from your hand as well? For a moment, Charles said nothing. Then his smile returned, thin, razor-sharp. Not directly, he admitted. But their existence, their suffering, that's my shadow. When I betrayed Icarus, I didn't just leave, I left behind the blueprint. Hades was desperate to match my work, and so they scavenged scraps. They tried to replicate what I did with you, but without my precision, my genius, well. He chuckled darkly. You've seen the results, imperfect, disposable, half-drained animals compared to my designs. Gabriel's jaw ticked once, but he didn't react otherwise. So you handed them the tools to butcher hybrids. You gave them everything they needed to turn your so-called masterpieces into cannon fodder. Charles shrugged like it meant nothing. Cannon fodder has its uses. Every army needs pawns. And every time one of their shifters dies, my successes shine brighter by contrast. Don't you see? Even their failures prove me right. Gabriel's voice stayed flat, though the words carried like a blade. You talk about pawns, about shadows. That's what Wraith feels like too. Always there, never seen. Was he yours as well? For the first time, Charles laughed. Low, humorless, sharp. Not mine. Wraith was never mine. He was Icarus. One of their golden minds, a handler, a strategist. The kind of man they trusted too much too early. Gabriel didn't move, but I felt the room lean in, everyone waiting. Charles' smile sharpened, his tone lowering like he was offering a secret. Wraith's name was Adrian Merrick. He sat on the same research boards as Vero, argued policy, allocation, ethics. Only he had no patience for the word ethics. He wanted results, no matter the cost. When I betrayed Icarus, he stayed. But when they started chaining his work, when they sealed files, shut down his projects, he turned too. Not to me, to Hades. The words hung, heavy and poisonous. Charles continued, eyes never leaving Gabriel. His motive? Simple. He thinks Icarus wasted him. He thinks Hades lets him finish what they never allowed. Every experiment he runs now, every cell he oversees, every hybrid he pushes to death, he tells himself it's proof that he was right and they were weak. His smile widened, faint but cruel. You want to know the real difference between me and him? I betrayed Icarus to keep control of my genius. He betrayed them because he was desperate for validation. Wraith is a mirror of everything I despise in Viro's precious order. A weak man chasing power like scraps. The silence that followed was razor-thin. Everyone still in position, but every ear tuned to the words. Charles tilted his head toward Gabriel. And now you know, I've given you more truth than I've ever given anyone, because whether you admit it or not, you're mine, my creation, my success, and I'd rather you stand in the light of it than keep clinging to the shadows she gave you. Gabriel's face was unreadable, his voice calm enough that the words felt almost rehearsed. So you hate him. His tone was flat, almost conversational. Wraith is everything you despise, weak, desperate, leeching off your genius. Charles' eyes narrowed slightly, as though gauging where this was headed. Gabriel didn't flinch. Then let me prove myself. If he's a thorn you can't pull, I'll do it. I'll take care of him for you, permanently. The silence that followed was crushing. Even hidden in the shadows, I felt the weight of it pressing in, a chill cutting through the air. All I need, Gabriel continued smoothly, is a location. For the first time since he entered, Charles stilled. The smirk faded, the mask of superiority slipping just enough to reveal something else underneath, calculation. He studied Gabriel as if trying to decide if this was the loyalty he'd been waiting for, or a trap waiting to snap. "You'd do that," Charles said at last, his voice quieter, sharper. "Kill Icarus Ghost for me." Gabriel didn't blink. "If it proves where I stand." The moment hung on a knife's edge, the trap tightening without a sound. Charles' smile crept back, thin and dangerous. "Perhaps you are worth more than I gave you credit for." Gabriel's voice stayed calm, steady, but there was a subtle shift, like he'd stepped half a pace closer without moving at all. "You call yourself the architect," he said slowly. "The one who proved them all wrong. If that's true, then Wraith isn't even your rival. He's a parasite, a shadow that lives only because you let him." Charles' eyes sharpened, but his smile tugged wider. Gabriel didn't stop. He took a breath, leaning into the words like confession. "You said I was your blade, that I was proof of your vision. Then let me be more than that. Let me be the hand that wipes away the stain of your imitators. Wraith thinks he's building something, but he's only building on scraps you left behind. Give me the chance to end him and I'll carve the truth into the world for you, that no one can rival your genius. Not Viro, not Hades, not even their phantom." The silence that followed stretched, heavy, brittle. Charles stared at him, studying, weighing. Then slowly he laughed, not the polished chuckle from before, but something lower, sharper, edged with real satisfaction. "You do understand," he said. "Finally." He took a step closer, lowering his voice as if speaking a secret. "Wraith is in Blackridge, an old transit hub near the northern wastes. He's repurposed the underground tunnels, built himself a nest there with his pet projects. He thinks no one knows. He thinks he's safe." Charles' smile turned cruel, indulgent. "Go to him, Gabriel. Tear his illusions apart. Show him he was never more than a failed echo of me. Do this, and you prove what I've always known, that my creations are the only legacy worth leaving." Charles' words still hung in the air, his smug smile carved into the dim light of the ruined factory. He thought he'd won. Thought he'd bought Gabriel's loyalty, thought he'd bent us all under the weight of his genius. But the trap had already closed. I caught Gabriel's eyes across the shadowed space. His face didn't move, didn't betray a thing, but he knew. This was the end. I raised my hand slowly, barely a flicker, a subtle gesture. The silent signal. High above, hidden in steel and shadow, Sila's shifted. His rifle was already sighted, his breath calm, steady, 1 heartbeat, 2. The crack of the shot split the air like thunder. Charles' head snapped back, his body staggering before collapsing to the factory floor. The smug smile was gone. The voice, the venom, the endless manipulations, all gone in an instant. The sound echoed through the hollow space, then faded, leaving only silence. No one moved. No one spoke. I lowered my hand, exhaling slowly. It's done.